Sugar kelp from the ocean.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, there's all...
Cranberry sauce, canned cranberry sauce.
Wait,
And
you actually...
cranberry sauce? I used to love that when I was a kid. I didn't
why-
even know people made cranberry sauce until I was
Right, yeah.
in my 20s. And I'm like, what's happened to cranberry sauce? It's all bumpy.
I'm not eating this.
Your cranberry sauce went bad, folks. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I had the same experience. I did not, it was just like, that's how cranberry... You take off the top, take off the bottom. Now it goes.
Yeah.
Hey all, Amanda here. Welcome to another episode of Great Beer Adventure. Today's episode will tickle your grammar geek bone as well as your beer geekery one. We sit down with Chris Schofield of Barreled Souls Brewing Company out of Saco, Maine. While my Googling skills are worse than ever this week, we still get to learn a lot about Chris, including his love of baking and editing Wikipedia pages. Chris isn't the only one with loves outside of beer. Dano and I share lots of our various interests over on our Periscope accounts. If you want to know more about us, be sure to follow our feeds. You can find me at Great Beer Women and Dano at Great Beer Dano. Back to the task at hand, however. In this episode, we discuss the difference between barrel aging and barrel fermentation and why someone might decide to only ferment their beers in a barrel. Let's head on down to the basement brewery that is Barreled Souls. Hey everyone, Amanda here, and I'm sitting around a barrel table today in a few barrel chairs with Jane and with Chris Schofield of Barreled Souls. And we're actually down in the basement.
True, yes. Yep.
Yes.
Basement of an old house.
Basement of an old house.
That's weird.
Yeah, there's a house that you drive up to and you're like, oh, look at this place. And then it has nothing to do with the house whatsoever. You got to go underneath the house.
Yeah, and around back, too. So you almost can't see it from the road, which is probably not the best marketing strategy. but you can't see it at all. No, it ended up working out well. A lot of people come in and they say that it has kind of like a speakeasy type feel. You sort of have to discover it. You kind of, having to come around the back side of the building, it's sort of, like, wow, there's something back here. And then go down a ramp to get in, and then it's the basement. And it's very safe.
It is a little intimidating the first time if you don't really know what you're doing. There's like a fence that's like, maybe I'm in the wrong spot. But then if you just keep going, all will be revealed.
We just
shortly.
put the new lights up. Are they on? Were they on when you came in? We strung some big lights like down the sides. So
I think they were.
It's a little more adds the welcoming aspect of it. Yeah.
Well, and this past summer you actually added a little grassy knoll of fun and entertainment.
Yeah, we did
to
cornhole tournaments all summer. So we had 2 sets of cornhole boards and then seating for about 20 people out there, and it's fenced in. And so, that's gone really well. People really enjoyed it in the summer. Yeah, definitely.
And I have to say, you have a great sign out front. It's not like you can't see the sign.
Right, true. We did get kind of lucky with that.
Nice sign.
Yeah, that had to do with kind of who lived here before, and there was a business here before, so we were able to use that sign. So that was lucky for us there. So
Otherwise, people may not know that you're here.
Right. Everything could have been completely different.
That nice red house. I don't know. I don't see anything.
As it is, like driving down Route 1, I swear people must have almost rear-ended me on the way here because I'm like, is it this one? Nope. Is it this house? Nope.
Yeah.
Is it past Funtown? Is it before? And
Funtown's always our point of location for people because everyone kind of knows where it is. So
well, it's got that big tower. You guys just need to put a big tower on top of the house.
That's true.
The other big tower.
Yeah.
That's all we need is more big towers.
We don't have enough filling out the landscape here in Maine. Why not, right?
Right.
Yeah.
What hell with trees.
Just down with trees, up with towers.
The main way.
Absolutely. So this is actually the part of the show where I tell you what I've Googled about you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I Google myself all the time, so I'll be well prepared.
Really? Because I had a very difficult time finding you, the Chris Schofield, because there are a number of Chris Schofields here in Maine
that are not you.
Right. Yeah. I'm slowly trying to eliminate all of them, but I hope that. Yeah.
Well, one's a police officer.
Right.
You may not want to eliminate
yeah.
him. That might be.
There's a
Yeah.
famous cricket player from England named Chris Schofield who's like a Hall of Famer type, and he's usually the top of the Chris Schofields. Maybe not anymore though. I don't know.
Well, I put in Maine, so that might have.
Oh, that'll skew it.
Cancel it out a little bit. And there's also a bakery-loving Chris Schofield, which the picture did not look like you, but you do love biscuits.
Yeah, I do.
That's what you were telling us.
I love baked things in general. I actually live in South Portland, right near Scratch Baking, and I'm pretty addicted. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm a fan. Yeah.
My 4-year-old is too.
Yeah.
She'll often say, "Ooh, can we get bagels today?" And it's
Yeah.
like 10 o'clock. They're gone. There are no bagels left for you, small child.
Yeah.
10 o'clock.
And they say beer's like liquid bread in a way, So there's a correlation or an overlap there.
Yeah.
It's basically just
You can connect the
really,
dots,
really
yeah.
wet bread.
Right. And have you ever
Soggy
thought of really soggy?
Extremely wet.
Have you actually ever thought of doing spent grain bread?
I have done that before. I'm not a huge fan of it.
No?
Like it's really like the little fibrous hulls and husks and all that stuff is just kind of, I don't know, I'm not crazy about it. Making bread with flour from malted barley is excellent, but you have to have it milled to the pastry flour consistency, which is, you need special mills to pull that off. But that makes a very sweet bread, and since it's actually essentially like a sprouted grain at that point, so it's nutritious too, delicious and nutritious, just like beer.
So you guys actually got started with a Kickstarter.
Yeah, we did. We used Kickstarter to help kickstart our business, and yeah.
I've got your next Kickstarter campaign. You can get one of those special mills and just mill all your spent grain, and then you could be making biscuits and beer.
No,
you've got a whole house upstairs.
It's not spent grain at that point. Actually, it's like you'd have to use the grain prior to making beer with it. That's the other thing, because spent grain's spent, and so it doesn't have any like the sweet flavors or
right.
I mean, it can be used, but it's not great. I wouldn't say. Yeah.
All right.
Hearty. Yeah.
It's hearty,
Yeah, right.
but not great.
Yeah.
Not flavorful.
Yeah, flavor. If flavor's what you're into, no.
We'll leave it to the dog biscuits then.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that we're just going to jump right into round one. That's why we came here.
We're done with Googling.
We're done with Googling. That's all. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
There's
really.
other Chris Schofields.
There are way too
They're not
many.
as
There's
cool.
a lot of Chris Schofield.
And the only thing I found
of which
about
are you.
you was that
Not
you
as
were.
handsome.
Yeah, the only thing I found about you was from your own website that says that you and Matt grew up in Wells and you've been friends since 4th grade.
Yeah.
That's the extent of it.
That's enough.
Do you find more when you Google yourself?
No, I was. I guess I meant Barrel Souls more than myself. Although clearly I know about the cricket player, so I kind of gave away my hand there that I do indeed do occasionally. But yeah.
Yeah, and that was it. It was really, I was at a loss. I was like, how can I not find out more about this guy? But everything is just you started Barrel Souls with Matt Mills.
Yeah.
And that's
Yep.
it.
And that's why we're here.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so let's drink some beer,
Definitely.
which is round one.
All right.
So we have two delicious-looking beers in front of us. We're going to start with this one, which is...
We call it our Turkey Pale Ale, or Turkey Day Pale Ale. How do we phrase it? Pale Ale Turkey Edition. It changes all the time.
Yes.
But it's a version of our Pale Ale. We have a
Goblin
traditional
Pale Ale. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a traditional American Pale Ale that we make, and so this is basically the same recipe. It's a little bit stronger though. It comes in at 7%. Our regular Pale Ale comes in the low 6 point somethings. And
I like the preciseness.
Right. Yeah.
6 point somethings.
Right. You got to keep it real tight.
Ish.
And so what we do with this one is we kind of treat it the same way as the Pale Ale. We use the same hops, and we dry hop it as well. But in addition to that, we do what you could call like a dry herbing. But we, along with the dry hops, so this is at the end of the process when the beer's essentially finished, transfer it from the fermenters into a conditioning tank. And you put, dry hopping is putting fresh hops into the beer at that point to release significant amounts of aromatics and flavor. Along with that, we actually just take fresh herbs. So in this batch, we did rosemary, thyme, and sage. And we do, this was about 50 gallons of beer that we made, and we used maybe 2.5 ounces combined of fresh herbs, so it's not a lot, but it's and rosemary, sage, and thyme. Just kind of mince it all up and throw it in a bag. We actually kind of let it sit in a bag, a mesh bag inside the beer, and it kind of steeps like you'd make
like a tea.
Yeah, like you'd make a cold brewed tea sort of. And so it really gives it mostly aromatics at that point. It's some of the flavors in there, but it's when you do it at that point in the process, you're mostly getting aromatics, similar to dry hopping. I mean, it's mostly for the aromatics. You get some flavor, but and yeah, so we kind of did it because we thought it'd pair well with a turkey dinner, which it does. And,
Which it did.
I can tell you from experience.
And it's beautiful coppery.
Yeah, it does.
Color.
Yeah, okay, because we talked a little bit earlier, we were talking about how we have listed the biscuit malt in there, and so that's like one of the malts we use for this, which we do actually use that in our regular pale ale as well, but we use a little bit more in this one, and that kind of gives it a little bit of a redder, sort of orange hue to it.
And it does smell lovely.
On last week's show, I sat down with Laura, who makes chocolates with beer, Le Crème Chocolat.
Yeah?
I think I pronounced that right. Yeah, I'm trying. I have horrible French skills.
Okay, yeah.
And she told me about all these different like complexities, and so now my mind is so confused. I'm drinking this and I'm thinking, ooh, this would taste really good with some stuffing. Like it feels like it would just like be best friends with stuffing.
Yeah.
But did you try it? Is it really good with
yeah,
stuffing?
I like it. And pairing food and beer in general is really fun and interesting. How it affects it. I mean, for a long time, wine obviously was the go-to for food pairing. But beer, it's just kind of amazing, like how much food can change how you experience the drink that you're having with it.
Oh, absolutely,
and so the herbal aromatics can become more pronounced or less, kind of depending on what you're eating. And if you're eating something that is kind of playing off those flavors to begin with, it kind of brings them both up. That's my knowledge of it, at least. There's people who are much more knowledgeable on food and alcohol pairing, but that's my experience. We did a beer with actually a version of Dark Matter with chocolate and raspberries, and we did a beer dinner a couple weeks ago at Thistle Pig, which is a restaurant in South Berwick. Excellent restaurant if you get a chance to go down there. We did a pairing with them, so it was a 4-course meal, 4 beers, and that Dark Matter with the raspberries and chocolate they paired with there was a mousse of some sort, of raspberry chocolate mousse with, it was fantastic, and it was just amazing, like how it just kind of made the raspberries come out even more. Like, if you had just had it on its own, you wouldn't have experienced it the same way. So, roundabout way of saying yes, it goes well.
Yeah, that's what she was saying. Is just you really need to think about like what flavors you want to bring out, and I thought I had got a pretty good understanding, and then I tried to do a pairing and say, so would this taste good with this? And she's like, basically said, no, you're wrong.
She's like, you're joking, right? Yeah, just kidding.
It was a joke. Yeah. So I'm drinking that going, I think this would be really good with stuffing, but I was a little bit like, maybe not. Maybe I'm really like completely out on a limb here.
Too bad we don't have any leftover stuffing.
There's biscuits going upstairs right now.
So you are doing a Thanksgiving dinner here with that tonight. So you have all those delicious. Do you do? I guess it would be your partner. You're making the biscuits,
right?
And your partner's doing everything else.
Yeah. Well, I did so we're smoking turkeys. Right, so I actually kind of prepped. I made a rub for the turkeys and prepped those and put them in the smoker, and then he's kind of maintaining the smoker. So it's a team effort. He's cooking all the other sides and everything to go with it, and he's very good at putting events and things together. So he's kind of the organizer of the team, and especially with these kind of things.
Good to have one of those.
Yeah, because it's not me. So, right.
Yeah, you're not very good at the organization. I've been told on many times by him.
Probably by me as well. I'm sure.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably at least once or twice.
Yeah.
So the question though is it homemade stuffing or is it stovetop type?
It's just biscuits. Actually, we're not doing stuffing separately.
It's just biscuits.
But the biscuits are homemade. Yeah.
Yeah.
Made from scratch. Yeah. So, drop biscuits. So they're very wet, and I have a buttermilk, and I actually put like chicken stock into the buttermilk because I sort of want them to be stuffing-ish. So I added herbs.
Seriously, you can go get some of those.
Yeah, they'd probably be
We
done
could
pretty
pause.
quick. Yeah, hold on here.
Wait a second.
After these
Time
messages.
out.
And then we did 2 different kinds. One of them we put bacon in it, and one we put dried cranberries.
Ooh.
So yeah, Yeah, I think they'll be all right. Yeah.
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 So,
All right. Yeah, no, that makes me hungry.
yeah.
That sounds delicious.
Right. Well, get your membership at Barrel of Souls, and you too can come to events such as these.
Maybe I could just have the biscuit recipe.
Yeah, I can arrange that. Yeah, it's Cooks Illustrated actually. That's where I got it from. Cooks Illustrated drop biscuits. Yeah, but then theirs
You
are
added-
theirs are very basic.
Right.
And I went crazy
You
with
embellished.
it. Yeah.
That's how I cook too. You
Yeah.
know, you'll see the list. I kind of just take that as a suggestion. Like,
Yeah.
this is not a recipe. This is just a suggestion how you could do it.
Your starting off point, even. It's kind of your
Exactly.
base. Yeah. That's how I treat beer too. I mean, we use a lot of different ingredients in beers. Mm-hmm. I think I've kind of said before to other people that we take almost like a chef type approach to making beer, and the herbs are an example of that. But kind of talking about like a baseline, pretty much every beer that you'll get comes from some sort of established style of beer, but then you can build off of that however you see fit, and using different flavors, and
Right.
they're called adjuncts in brewing. Pretty much anything that's not one of the big four ingredients is kind of considered an adjunct, and we use lots of those. So
Yeah, just looking
It's
at your
fun,
list, you've got squash,
Mm-hmm.
you've got cocoa nibs, which the squash is completely out in left field for most beers.
Fig jam.
Fig jam.
well,
There's-
that's a flavor descriptor though. We didn't actually use it.
Oh.
But that's how we'd
But-
kind of describe the character of the beer. Yeah.
You did put bacon in one that's not
We
up
have,
there
yeah.
today.
No, it's not
But
on that,
I know that you make one with bacon.
Sugar kelp from the ocean.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. There's all.
Cranberry sauce, canned cranberry sauce.
Wait,
And
you actually-
cranberry sauce. I used to love that when I was a
Yeah,
kid. I
that's
didn't
why-
even know people made cranberry sauce until I was
Right, yeah.
like in
Well-
my 20s, and I'm like, what's happened to the cranberry sauce? It's all bumpy.
I'm not eating this. Yeah.
Your cranberry sauce went bad, folks. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I had the same experience. I did not. It was just that's how cranberry. You take off the top, you take off the bottom.
Yeah,
And out it
exactly.
comes.
Yeah. So
you put that-
right, so we wanted to make a beer with cranberries, and then in the back of our head, we're kind of feeling like everyone always prefers the canned kind, even if they're not going to admit it. That's really what people want. They want that tube that makes a little suction noise and
Right,
slice it up. Yeah,
See the little ridges?
yeah, exactly. And so we're like, let's put that in a beer. So it actually came out pretty cool. We used smoked malt in it, so it's malted barley, which is essentially they get it to the point that it would be used for a base malt in beer, so it's fully converted and all that, and then they smoke it, and so it has. And this is cherrywood smoked malt, so there's different types of malts smoked over different things, and they all have different flavors and intensities. The smoke came through pretty strong on this one, so it kind of overpowered the cranberry. I'd say that's a little bit of a balancing thing. But so if you're into smoking beers, then it's very good. So it's one that is kind of divisive. A lot of people love it, and a lot of people just are like, I can't drink this. I don't like smoking beer.
So I always say that I have a meter that starts at 0 and goes to bacon.
Mm-hmm.
And whereabouts on that? So there's a beer that Oxbow does that's their Oktoberfest, and I say they're about 2/3 to bacon.
Oh, I'd say
From
we're
0 to bacon, how close are you to bacon?
closer than that. Yeah,
Like 7/8.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
Right up snuggling close.
I mean, I'm trying to remember the Oxford beer you're talking about, and I kind of didn't think it was actually that smoky. So yeah, I guess.
So
Yeah, we all have our own
15,
meters.
16.
Right, that's true.
Yeah, right.
Right.
So it's kind of smoky. It's 40% of the malt bill is smoked malt.
Holy wow.
So that's I mean, a lot of like the Rauch beers of Germany
Yeah.
are 100% smoked malt. So, but again, it matters on the malt. So the cherrywood smoked malt is from a company called Briess, and it's pretty potent compared to maybe one of the German smoked malts would be a little mellower. So. But it was our first time using it too, so it was it's got to start somewhere. So
Right. Would you do less than 40%?
I think I would, yeah. If we
Next time?
make it again next year, yeah, because I'd like the cranberry to come through more. So, but like I said, it's there's a lot of people who absolutely love it. So it's
Now, your bacon beer, though, that one actually had
actual bacon. in it.
actual bacon,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. A lot, like 30
little
pounds.
bits?
Yeah, we cook it. We fully cook it and render it down so all the fat's cooked out of it. Almost all the fat.
Wow.
And then we just cut it up into small pieces. We actually use a food processor to get it into really small pieces, and then do it similar to how we did the herbs. We put it in a bag, a mesh bag, and then just submerge it in the beer and let it sit for about 5 days. And it really kind of soaks in all those flavors, and smoky, kind of fatty. It's pretty cool. Yeah, we haven't done it in a while. Actually, we're gonna bring that back soon. So.
Yeah, that one was.
Have you had that?
I've had that one, and I'm not actually a huge. When I talk about bacon beers, I normally am talking about that smoke factor, and I'm not really a giant smoked beer person.
Yeah.
But that one kind of had, like, even though you describe a lot of smoked beers as having bacon flavors, your bacon beer tasted less.
So there's actually no smoked malt in it.
Right.
Yeah,
so it had
it's
a different flavor in it.
Yeah.
I enjoy that one quite a bit.
Yeah, it's like more like the meaty saltiness of the bacon
Right.
rather than like the smoked. Right. The good stuff. Yeah.
Saltiness, right.
Yeah.
And what else was in that?
Because there's
particular-
coffee and cinnamon in it.
Yeah.
I also love both of those things.
Yeah. The cinnamon was an interesting one. That was the first time I've worked with cinnamon. So that all goes in that same part of the process. And every time we've made that beer, we've done a little bit less cinnamon and a little bit less cinnamon. And I think we got it just to where we want it now.
And what's the name of that beer?
MCAM. It's like Matt and Chris, the two owners of the brewery here. And then AM is in like breakfast. Matt and Chris in the morning.
The next radio show you'll be hearing.
Yeah, everyone wants to wake up to Matt and Chris.
Great.
And bacon and coffee.
Now, so that's been soaking in beer, the bacon, with cinnamon and coffee.
Sure.
If you could get the coffee and the coffee, and do you use cinnamon sticks or just like?
Yeah, cinnamon sticks. We break them up.
Yeah, if you could get those out and just have the bacon back, I bet that would make a really delicious omelet.
The bacon back from after.
Yeah.
It's soaked in there. So I thought that too, but it's actually not the case.
Really?
It like completely strips all the flavor out of it. I tried some of it, and it is like literally like chewing on rubber bands. Like it's just like, it's cool because it means all that's in the beer.
Right.
But it's amazing how much it's completely flavorless. Yeah. So. Yeah.
It's really interesting to think about.
Yeah, I was surprised. I kind of thought it'd be kind
You're
of
like,
something we could use it for. Yeah. What's this? I'm like, everyone, what's happening?
Bacon omelet, yeah.
Yeah, but no, that rubber band omelets sound disgusting.
So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like tough octopus.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. So what is this second beautiful dark?
Yeah, so the second
beer
one's Dark
sitting
Matter.
in front of us, Dark Matter.
Which I realized right after I said all beers are kind of built off of a existing style. This is one beer that we would kind of like to say it doesn't have a style because of the way the beers, the malt bill basically for the beer is very different. It's we use like 40% flaked grains, so we use a lot of flaked oats and a lot of flaked barley, but 40% is a very lot. So that's kind of not typical. There's no real style that's sort of traditionally done that way. And then we don't use any roasted barley, so it's not really a stout because you kind of have to use roasted barley to make a stout. Is there a comment section on this? Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people disagreeing with all this. As I'm saying it, I'm like, that's not true. You don't have to. I'm like 40%. There's two different beers.
Yeah, you can tweet Chris directly.
Right. Yeah.
At a Twitter handle I don't know because I couldn't figure out which one would be his because there's like 7 Chris Cofields.
Yeah, it's amazing. But so no roasted barley. There's a lot of debittered black malt, which is actually it's a very highly kilned malt that they then take the husk off of, so you don't get that sort of tannic, harsh, astringent-y, like burnt flavor. But yeah, so it definitely doesn't kind of fit into the style specific. So it's called Dark Matter, and the quote that we put on the board is one that I found on like a NASA website, and it's let me see if I remember it. It says we are much more certain what dark matter is not than we are what it is. Right. So I thought that was kind of a cool way to describe the beer as well.
Yeah.
So
it's not a stout, it's not a porter, but we don't really know what it is.
It is dark.
Yeah, it's big. It's 10%, so it's got some kick to it. Yeah, and it
is delicious.
I kind of get almost like a cherry almost flavor, like a dark fruit flavor. I had the guy who owns Nocturnum up in Bangor was in, and he tried it, and he's like, it kind of reminds me of like a really dark Belgian quad. And I was like, that's an interesting description because Belgians quads are known for that sort of raisiny, deep sort of fruit flavor, and there is some of that in here. that usually comes from the yeast, actually, in a Belgian beer, kind of. But which this has the Scottish yeast, so. But yeah, so it's interesting. It's different.
I think I know what currants taste like, but then probably I don't. But in my head, whatever a currant tastes like, I feel like I'm getting that out of that.
Yeah.
Is that an actual thing? Like, do you think
Currants
maybe that's
are.
right?
Currants are an actual thing, yes.
But in this beer.
These are real. Google it. It's true. It has a Wikipedia page.
Wait, you think currants have their own
I hope so.
Wikipedia page?
If not, I know what the rest of my night's going to be spent doing.
That would be fantastic. I wish that was like really the case. Like you just like made Wikipedia pages. Do you? Is that like your pastime?
Yeah, I've edited Wikipedia pages before.
Really?
Just you like see something like sometimes maybe it's just grammar or sometimes it's something that's just wrong. But it's kind of fun to make a change to one. And yeah.
Are you a grammar police?
No, I like to be. I'm not as good at it as I would like, but yeah, I like it. I like to dabble in grammar.
Like grammar, yeah.
Yeah, me like grammar lots.
Yeah.
I have a hard
Me
time.
and you should get together and
Yeah.
Well, Jane is
yeah.
English as a second language teacher.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just my job.
I went to a debate. Do you know Josh Christie, the writer?
Yeah.
He did a debate on the Oxford comma, and he was against the Oxford comma and being required. And but I went to a debate about the Oxford comma, so I'm a little into grammar.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing. I don't think I've been to a debate in general, politics
debate.
or
Yeah.
grammar.
Yeah. Well, the Oxford comma, that's a bloodlust there. People are very serious about it. Yeah. No one changed their mind. That was amazing. It was a great debate, and he was really good. He lost, I'd say, but no, he definitely lost actually. But they have you vote before and they have you vote after, and almost nothing. I don't think there was any swing. Yeah. People come in there with their opinions. They're steadfast.
So I know that talking politics is like a bad thing. So is it the same type of thing with the Oxford comma? Can you tell us how you voted, or is this completely...
Oh, I don't know. They didn't. That would be hard to say.
You don't know if you would...
You don't know how you voted?
You don't know how you voted?
Oh, no, but I don't know the correlation between, like, if you...
No, but I'm saying, like, do you feel comfortable? I don't want to, like, step on your toes and be like...
That's a segue.
Right. I don't know
I
if
see
you're-
what you mean. Yeah,
right. I don't want to be like, are
I'm-
you a Democrat or a Republican? Like,
I thought
know
you were
that's
asking
bad.
me to speak to the correlation between
No.
Oxford comma versus liberal conservative, and I was like, that I'm not prepared to do.
No, I'm just
My
wondering...
leap.
I
Yeah.
was just wondering, is it as taboo?
I'm pro Oxford comma.
You're pro.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
I
so
like it. I like
right
it.
here-
We need structure in this world. Yeah. There's rules,
So I don't know a lot about politics, but I also don't know a lot about the Oxford comma. Like, I'm completely... What is it? I know that you both are, like, probably
Well,
hating me.
It's when you're putting a list, when you're writing out a list, it's whether or not that last part of the list needs it. So if there's, I don't know if I'm
before
good at,
the and.
Yeah, before the and at the end. So
Yeah.
if there's like A, B, C, and D, would it be A, comma, B, comma, C, comma, and D? Or would it be A, comma, B, comma, C, and D?
Oh, see,
So
then I'm...
purple, comma, blue, comma, red, comma, and yellow.
Yeah.
No.
Do you get that?
Yeah, I get what
Okay,
you're
was
saying.
that- yeah.
But that just feels like
Do you like the comma?
efficiency. No, like, I feel like there's way... You shouldn't put it there. You need to be efficient. You need
I
to be
just
like...
always tell my students to be consistent. So if you
Yeah.
use it, always use it. And if you don't use it before the and,
I think that's kind of the way a lot of people lean. Is just keep up with it. But it's the confusion is that at the end, are you talking about two things combined? Like say our C
Eggs
and
and
D one
bacon,
thing, yeah,
right.
and that sometimes there's all these fun little kind of thought experiments, or I don't know if that's the right term, like little
I like
kind
the
of
idea
riddles.
of thought experiments.
Yeah, like sort of like a phrase that can you come up and like this is an example of why it's needed, or this is an example of why it's totally not needed. Like so,
See,
yeah, you know.
I have a really strange personality where I'm very creative in whatever, but then I'm also very... I was an accountant, so I'm very...
Oh, yeah.
Be quick, efficient memos. Why the heck take the extra time to throw in the comma when you can just be done and over with it
Well, clarity,
and move past
though.
it?
Yeah, you gotta. There's a balance between efficiency and clarity.
I know, but I really feel like that the and tells you everything you need right there.
Except sometimes things have like you have to describe them as this and that, but it's actually one
right?
thing.
Black
Yeah.
and white.
I know there's great.
Up and down.
There's great examples
Yeah.
that are. I can't think of any of them right now.
Can't believe you went to it. debate on the Oxford Common.
Yeah, well,
pretty
you
cool.
know, that's
I think
I'm
you
a real cool guy.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty awesome. And I think you might be Jane's new best friend.
Right.
You love beer and grammar.
Right. Yeah, that was good. Good stuff.
Yeah. The one that really
Biscuits.
bothers me, I obviously have a hard time with two, and two. And then I also have a hard time with your, and your. And but the one that really, really irks me is soul and soul. Like, your soul that goes, up into heaven or wherever.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
And the soul of your shoe?
Or a fish. Like, they're two very different
flayed
things.
soul. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so when somebody's like, I love you with all of my soul, but they're, not talking about
Fish.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, with all of your bottom of your foot.
In my culture, we hit people with our shoe to show them we love them. Right.
Exactly. It's like,
like
so you love me with your shoe.
The bottom of your shoe.
The bottom, not even the whole shoe, just the
Right.
bottom.
That's
That's the one that...
I like accept and accept are the one that I always hard time with that one. Is that, am I thinking of the right one? No, affect. I'm thinking affect and
Affect and
effect.
effect.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Accept and accept probably are weird too, but no, effect and effect because it's almost the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they almost mean the same thing. So you have to know a lot about the context to be able to figure it out. And then you're like, well, they're almost the same. So, yeah, that's a tricky one.
I have a really hard
Keep
time
you up
with
at
that.
night right there.
Yeah, I will change my words in whatever I'm writing so that I don't have to use it. Like, if I'm doing a handwritten something, I change what words I'm going to write because I'm horrible at spelling. Whereas if I'm speaking to you or if I'm typing on a computer, there's going to be a lot bigger words, but I cannot handwrite them to you. So it's affect and effect. I have no idea what the difference is.
Again, the general rule I always tell my students is effect is the thing, it's the noun. So it has an effect on you.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, lack of sleep has an effect on you
Yeah.
with an E.
But lack of sleep also affects your personality.
Affects is
Right.
a verb.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, right, yeah. So
Right.
as long as you kind of think about it that way, yeah.
I was never good at Mad Libs.
Well,
Oh, I love Mad Libs.
I pretended I was.
I was never.
You just kept screaming out words like
You're like, it'll be funnier like this.
over-enthusiastic.
It's like, well,
Yeah.
sort of.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of being like I was hopping mad, I was turkey mad because I don't really know. Anyways, moving on to round
Wow, this
two.
is
Round
great.
two.
We're talking about beer and grammar.
Yeah, who knew?
But we should
Yeah.
probably move on, yeah.
No.
This
General
has
audience
become
probably isn't.
Jane's favorite episode ever.
Yeah.
Okay, round two. Round two, we talk about the theme, and even though we're sitting in the basement of a house that has a crazy story, and Barreled Souls is your brewery, that is not the theme.
No.
No.
We'll move right past those.
Right past
Boring.
Right along.
Yeah.
The theme is actually barrel fermentation.
Yeah.
And there's,
What's that?
yeah.
Yeah, right.
So I've heard of
Certainly.
barrel, you
Aging.
do barrel
Yeah.
aging, but barrel fermentation is not the same?
Not the same, yeah.
No?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's something that's taken a while to kind of. I think it took a while for most people to grasp it, and it's still something that we kind of have to. Unless you really know brewing, it's hard. Yeah, it's like you're like, what's what? Like all your beers are barrel aged. That's what we got a lot of when we first opened. It's because people knew about the barrel aspect of everything, but then they just assumed everything was barrel aged. Barrel fermenting is so to make beer, you create wort and then you add yeast and it ferments it, right? So that's called primary fermentation. Barrel fermenting is when you do primary fermentation inside of a barrel.
So do you have no fermentation vessels other than the barrels?
Correct, right. So 100% of all the beers that we make are 100% fermented inside of old whiskey barrels. And then barrel aging is when you take a finished beer, uncarbonated, but essentially other than that, it's finished, and you put it into a barrel, and age it for some amount of time. And when you do that, you're actually trying to extract the character of what was in the barrel prior to that. Typically, sometimes they're aged in fresh oak barrels. That's actually pretty rare, but then you're just looking for the oak character. But typically, you're using a barrel that held some sort of spirit, like bourbon or rye or whiskey, tequila, something like that, or a wine, red wine or port, something like that. And you're trying to incorporate that as an added complexity to the beer. But barrel fermentation is right when you undergo primary fermentation inside of a barrel.
So what I'm taking from that is that you're not necessarily trying to get the flavors from the barrel?
Kind of. We're not trying to get the flavors of what was held in the barrel previously. So we still do want some of the character from the barrel, though, the wood, actually, like some of the oak character. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much been taken up. So all the barrels we use are Jim Beam barrels that held Jim Beam bourbon that were then used by Allagash to age Allagash Curio, which is their triple aged in Jim Beam bourbon barrels. So Jim Beam took most of the oak character. Allagash Curio took a bit of oak character and most of the Jim Beam character. When we get them from them, there's a little bit of bourbon left, but not much. I wouldn't want to age a beer in those barrels if I wanted bourbon character in the beer, because Allagash took most of it, right? You've had Curio. It's delicious.
It is.
It has great bourbon character. Mm-hmm. So we get the barrels from them, and we soak them in a citric acid potassium bisulfate solution. And citric acid did something like that. And that helps kill off anything that might be in the barrel, and it kind of strips a little bit of the whatever's left for flavor from what liquid was held in there previously. And then when you do primary fermentation in the barrel, though, it does the yeast, the act of primary fermentation exposed to oak actually starts to break the wood down a little bit, and you develop some flavor compounds and chemical reactions that add some character to the beer. And it becomes kind of, for our beers, it's sort of a house character. You wouldn't necessarily be like, this is an oak, this is an oaky beer. It's kind of a complexity and an underlying character that kind of runs through all of our beers, which I really like. I like that, to kind of have something that ties everything together. So as far as flavor components from the wood, that's really all you're getting is that like reaction when it's exposed to primary fermentation.
So why? Why did you decide, was it just so that...
Right, so that's part of it. That's part of it is a little, kind of a uniqueness to the character of the beer. I always kind of say that there's like threefold reasons, so that's one of them. The other is that fermentation in the shape of the vessel is actually beneficial to fermentation. It's shallow, so there's much less atmospheric pressure inside the liquid. Atmospheric pressure is kind of like if you swim to the bottom of a swimming pool and feel the pressure in your ears. That's atmospheric pressure. And when you ferment in really tall cylindrical fermenters, there's really high pressures at the bottom of that tank, and yeast is a living organism, so it's affected by environmental things like that, and it can kind of cause mutations and cause the yeast to be a little more unhealthy, and so it's a little bit healthier fermentation environment. The actual shape of the barrel too, the roundness of it, kind of helps move the yeast around because it's moving up and down, and so as it kind of slides up the walls, it sort of stirs it a little bit. So that's good for it, but kind of the main reason is that we're able to recapture yeast out of the barrels. So it's actually our take on a Burton Union system, which is an old British method. Burton. Like Burton-on-Trent is an area in England, and then this type of fermenting was practiced there, and so it's called a Burton Union. And the purpose of that is actually a way to recapture yeast. So when yeast ferments, it creates what's called krausen, which is a thick layer of yeast that forms on top of the beer. When we fill the barrels, we fill them almost all the way to the top. So there's nowhere for that krausen to go. So it gets pushed out the top of the barrel, and we have a pipe system that feeds that yeast up into a catchment system. So the bucket thing on top of the barrels. Yeah, technical term. Right. Yeah. Where do I get these bucket things? Granger. No. It fills up with yeast, and then we use that yeast for subsequent batches. So it's our way of, it's a form of top cropping, kind of. And I wanted to do that because we're such a small brewery. I knew we wouldn't have access to any kind of lab equipment. Although there are breweries like Allagash that makes a lot of their lab facilities available to small breweries, which is great.
Oh, that's cool. Nice.
But thinking that I wasn't going to be able to have constant access to that, I wanted to have a fermentation method that kind of ensured that I had a really healthy yeast crop. And so this is a way to do that. Theoretically, we're the as far as I know, we're the only brewery in the world that makes all of their beers this way. So history said that it was a good way to get yeast, and it was kind of a gamble on our part to build a brewery around the concept of fermenting beer this way. And so far, it seems to be working. It was pretty scary the first time we started filling barrels and being like, no one does this. Like, there's no one to call. There's no one to go visit.
Yeah.
Kind of be like, how do you do your Burton Union system? There's a brewery in California called Firestone Walker that uses a Burton Union type system, but they don't recapture their yeast. They just ferment it in barrels, and they use a series of fresh oak, medium aged oak, and then older oak that's actually like 0.
So they don't have that thingy on top.
Right, yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah. Oh, you're familiar with the thingy. Yeah. Right, yeah.
Oh, the bucket thingy. Are you talking about the bucket thingy?
Right. Yeah, they're very hard to come by. They're made in Italy. As a craftsman who...
So the room we're sitting in has a lot of barrels, but those would be your barrel-aged program.
Right,
Because
yeah.
your barrel fermenting program needs to have the bucket thingy.
Right.
Is what
yeah.
we're officially calling it.
It's unsightly. You wouldn't want to see that. No. You can see it through the... We ferment in a temperature-controlled room, so we keep the room about 62 degrees. So that's a little uncomfortable. So we separated that off.
62 is uncomfortable?
Well, for some.
It's a little chilly.
Well, plus, there's like the cleanliness factor, just people sitting
No,
around.
I agree with
It's
the
fair-
cleanliness.
it's fairly
Don't
open,
find
yeah.
62 uncomfortable.
Yeah. I
So-
do. I like 80. Right.
Yeah, I agree. I like it a little warmer. So I have some questions, some from fermentation vessel questions.
Sure.
So we found out that on episode 9 we talked to Dash about yeast, and we found out that basically if you stop it up, it would explode. Mm-hmm. And so, is it just the little spot at the top that's open, like the tiny 2-inch diameter
Bunghole is what it's called. Yeah.
bunghole?
Right.
Yeah, we learned about that last week too.
Yeah.
But I have a hard time saying that. But so is
Right. You don't pronounce G's well.
so is it? I also my husband has told me that I don't pronounce the word, and I'll say it because, and while I'm thinking about it, I'll do it. But brewery, I actually, a lot of time it comes out brewery. So now my 4-year-old thinks all breweries are burries.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, are you going to a brewery tonight, Mama?"
Yeah. Brewery is it's a lot of weird sounds, and actually I actually think barreled is kind of hard to say.
Yeah, it
we
is.
sort of thought about that before when we were picking the name out. We really liked the name, but it's like barrel souls, barrel souls.
Barrel.
Especially up here in Maine.
And then it makes you have to think about it more.
Right.
And you're like, it's a brewery with a hard name to say.
That
and
one.
the good beer. No.
So the bunghole is open. It's silly.
Yeah. Keep all the bungholes are open in your barrels. What? We'll edit that out.
No, we won't. That's awesome. So they're open, and all of the
For fermentation,
for
they're open.
for fermentation,
We
not
actually,
for the barreled program.
We actually drill them out to make them bigger.
Oh, okay.
Which I mean,
So how? Oh, this is just turned from
we
bad to worse.
really stretch the bungholes out here, barrel holes. Oh man.
So they're probably about 1.5 inches, 2 inches normally.
Yeah.
And then how big do you make them?
2.5 inches on a good day. Right. Yeah.
Oh goodness.
2.5 inches. Yeah.
And then
So it lets more come through, more yeast is able to push out of it. Because when yeast ferments, it creates alcohol and CO2 along with a whole slew of other flavor chemicals and compounds, but mainly alcohol and CO2 are the two big ones. And so it's just creating a gas, so it's pressurizing. So if you didn't have a good way of letting that pressure out, it would get very high pressure. So
And did you say you put a pipe or something into that? And then or does it just kind of like...
No, yeah, there's a pipe. There's a connection that we have in there that puts a pipe into there, and it's about maybe 1.5 feet high, and then it makes a 90-degree turn and goes into the bucket thing.
In the thingy.
The bucket thingy.
Straight into the thingy. Yeah.
Thingy.
All right, and so then from there, in the bucket thingy, that's where you collect your yeast back.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Because a quote-unquote normal, typical fermenter has a conical shape, and that helps you collect that slurry.
Right, so eventually, if you chilled the conical down, if you chilled it down, the yeast would drop out to the bottom and collect at the bottom of it, and then that's where you recapture yeast from. In our case, we're capturing it off the top. So the yeast that rises to the top is some of the healthiest and strongest yeast. So you're getting a really healthy, active yeast crop. Yeah.
So you must have to kind of be kind of quick to get that stuff before, or does it all just
No,
go
it just
in
kind
there?
of gets pushed into there, and then we probably pull we call them catchments. So we pull the catchments off probably 4 to 5 days in. Or the lower alcohol the beer, the earlier we take it off because it finishes fermentation quicker.
Right.
Higher alcohol later, but usually no more than 5 or 6 days because once it's in there, you want to get it out of there and get it cold, put it in the walk-in cooler, get it down to 35, 40 degrees because that helps prevent any kind of mutations that might occur, or it just slows the yeast down and keeps it more stable.
And then, so do you put the barrel into the thing, or do you take it out of the barrel into the
we pump
cooler?
it. Yeah, we pump it out of the yeast.
No. You said after 4 or 5 days you want to cool it down.
The yeast, right? So we actually take the catchment away,
away.
put the yeast into a
And then
storage
what happens
container.
to the beer?
Then the beer continues fermenting, but it's at a much lower level. It's probably almost finished fermenting at that point. Not quite, but it's not throwing off nearly as much yeast at all, and it's not really putting off quite as much CO2. So we don't seal it up. We still have it like an airlock type of thing on it that lets it breathe. And then sometimes it'll be another 3 to 4 weeks like that, depending on the beer. Sometimes only another 3 to 4 days. But
So do you have like your room for the yeast and another room, or is it all done in one space? There's not a lot of space down here.
There's 3 different rooms. Initially, when we opened, we actually had a Belgian yeast strain that we were using, but it didn't really work well in the union system. It needed to be too hot. The Belgian yeast kind of, if you want that good Belgian flavor, the fruity flavor, you have to ferment them a little bit warmer, and we kind of couldn't keep the rooms that warm.
Because you're in a basement?
Well, no, we could keep them physically that warm, but it was not that clean. Like at that temperature, you kind of start to get a little bit of mildew. You got to be clean inside.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
So yeah, we kind of steered away from it because of that. So now there's 3 rooms, but it's all the same yeast strain, and they're all the same temperature. So essentially, it could just be one big room, but we'd already built them. So yeah.
So just run through the 3 again. You said threefold. 1 would be because of the flavor. 2 is because of the natural way that it ferments. Is that correct?
Yeah, one I would say that the character from the barrel that
Yeah.
incorporates. The 2 is the dimensions of the fermenter, the reduced atmospheric pressure, and then 3 is the yeast recapturing system. Yeah.
And so my guess is you're probably going to want to get bigger.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds good. Is that an investment offer?
Yes, I will invest 100% of our proceeds thus far.
All right. Smooth sailing.
Hopefully you don't want to expand too soon.
Right.
So are you planning on continuing this even as you grow? Are you going to keep doing the barrel fermentation?
Yep. Kind of the idea that we had to grow is to use a different type of barrel. So this is a 200-liter barrel. There's a barrel that's 500 liters. That's called a puncheon. And that would probably what we would do would switch to those. So it would be a 2.5 times larger barrel, and we could have the same number and all that, and just that would be like the way that we would expand. And then bigger brewing system and bigger conditioning tanks and all that fun stuff. But as far as the barrels go, that's we would switch over to that. Yeah.
Well, I think at this point it makes perfect sense to move right on to round 3 and figure out what your first beer memory is. Like, why did you get started this way, and why are we doing it this way? Jane, you want to take this one?
Sure. So now we want to talk about and hear about your first beer memory. Which doesn't have to be, when you were of legal drinking age, but
Right, yeah.
whatever point in your life you remember being impressed by beer.
Yeah, I have one, because that's something that I think beer people like to talk about, and everyone has their sort of moment where they kind of converted to the craft beer. I mean, I've a couple things early on. My grandfather was always into good beer. He's from England, and he would drink. I remember like the Sam Adams Scotch Ale. He drank a lot, and then he would have Guinness and stuff when I was younger, and so I was sort of exposed to it, and I always thought that was cool, and I thought like my English heritage and his like being from England was cool. So I was like, good beer was always like a little bit on my mind. But the real first experience that I remember is my senior year in high school. A group of like a dozen of us went on a trip to Montreal, and when I was there, I had Maudite from Unibrew. Maudite. That's a French. Yeah, we can't do our French pronunciations well, but I believe it's Maudite or Maudite.
Today you have bonded with both me with your lack of Frenchness and Jane with your high grammar.
I have carte blanche to mispronounce French.
Right.
Nice. That was good.
You like what I did there?
I like what you did there.
You saw that?
I did. I saw it.
But so yeah, I had that, and I was just like, holy crap, this is amazing. Like this is like I had no idea like beer could taste like this, and I remember that clearly, and that was definitely like the tipping point for me. A nice glass of Maudite in Montreal. Yeah.
Right. Who wouldn't rather drink good beer than
Oh yeah, and then it's just
average beer.
And that was 1999, and yeah, it's an amazing time to be a beer drinker. It's an amazing time to be a beer drinker.
I think at this point we should fill our audience in the fact that we actually had to move locations. We moved upstairs to the house portion. This is the first time I've ever been in here. Yeah. And that you have a little friend up here.
Right, I have a little friend. Right. Yes, my dog Flo.
Sweet, pretty friend.
Yeah, so she just made a little growl sound because she wants to have her own mic. But,
yes, right. I didn't bring a fourth mic. I'm sorry, Flo.
Yeah, but yeah, she's a little brewery mascot down there. She likes it.
She seems like a very nice dog, and she was very excited by the fact when I yelled up to you. She's like, "Ooh, people!"
Yeah,
she came running.
Right. Chris isn't here, but I am.
I will take
keep you company.
I will take the interview over from here. You mentioned Guinness, and next week is Christmas, and my husband and I actually have a tradition on Christmas Eve to have a Guinness. But not just any Guinness. We actually make it into a car bomb. So it's like Irish car bomb. And then you put together whatever toys you are set to put together because it's Christmas Eve.
I like that.
Yeah.
Kick it off.
Kick it off.
Kick off the craziness. Yeah.
Then you just want to check the bolts the next day.
Right. Yeah. Don't roll the kid down the driveway on the new bicycle.
Right. Check the bike wheels the next day and make sure everything's A-okay. And then move on to Christmas Day and have whatever beers are available that day.
Yeah.
On that note, let's move into our fourth and final round. All right. So this one we call, very lovingly, 3 sheets to the wind, 3 random questions.
All right.
We've had a little bit to drink, and now we are ready to delve deep into your mind. Ooh. And we're going to start with, what is your favorite cartoon from when you were a kid?
Favorite cartoon when I was a kid. That's funny, actually, because Thundercats. I'll go with Thundercats.
That is not the first time we've heard Thundercats.
Oh, really? Yeah. Only because,
but I'm still puzzled because I don't know it.
Oh, yeah?
No.
Well, and that's interesting. Well, it was on my mind a little bit because I tossed around the idea of my girlfriend and I dressing up as Lionel and She-Ra, Shatara. I don't know what that character.
We cannot help you.
Yeah. There's a cheetah type character in there, and we were like, we should dress up as them because we both really liked it when we were kids. But so it was a little bit on my mind, but I did like that a lot when I was a kid, and it is. I watched it like a couple years ago, maybe I watched like a few episodes, and it's like a ridiculous. It's pretty scary.
Really?
It's a pretty dark cartoon.
Yeah, a lot of cartoons
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, like I was amazed by it. Like, and it reminds you like these like you remember watching it. Like, so you haven't watched it since you were a kid, and so you like immediately like have these like memories of when you were younger. And like I was like, man, this is an intense cartoon. Like, yeah. So yeah. Thundercats. That's my answer.
Thundercats. Okay.
Now, there were two that came out, right? Like one was like a Robo Lego cat thing, and then there was Thunder.
Voltron. Yeah.
That one. So I remember
Solid.
the Voltron, but just because somebody else spoke about it, not because I actually know it. And we went into great detail on what
memory.
we went into great detail on what Voltron was because I
I'll
couldn't
remember
get off
that in
it.
this part explaining it.
But I don't remember exactly what Thundercats were about. Was it some kind of mutant thing? Like mutant cats?
Yeah. Well, no. I believe they were aliens of a sort. I think it all took place on some like distant galaxy planet type thing. Though I don't remember the real details, but they were there was like a team of Thundercats that fought this like bad like I can't think of his name either though, but like the bad guy, and there's like a constant enemy that they were like battling, and he would always have different ways of trying to stop
There's
them.
always a bad guy.
And they were protecting like the people of whatever planet they were on. I think. I'm sure. I'm clearly not like the hardcore Thundercats fan that I
You once were.
didn't really make myself out to be. But, yeah.
All right.
But yeah,
well,
I believe it's alien cats from a distant galaxy fighting like a skeleton type creature. Yeah, who's quite scary. In my older older years here, I'm quite terrified of him.
I know what you mean. Like I think about the shows that I want to show my daughter.
Mumra, that's his name.
Mummer?
Mumra. He's like a mummy skeleton thing.
Yeah,
But anyways, go
okay.
ahead.
Well, like Disney movies, you think about Walt Disney World, and you're like, oh, happy-go-lucky, it's a small world. And you think, but then you start thinking about like the characters and how evil some of these people are. And so I can imagine like going back, I look at cartoons a lot differently now as an adult than I ever did as a kid. They're petrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think our parents cared.
They didn't really care at all, I don't think.
Yeah. It's like all the old nursery rhymes are all about like disease and plague and death and pain and suffering. Yeah.
Right.
But
Ring
you
Around the
sing.
Rosies,
Just as
right?
long as you keep singing, everything's going to be okay.
Life will be good.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
There's
sure.
some truth to that, I'm sure.
Right? Isn't Ring Around the Rosies like the same thing? Like it's about the plague,
Yeah, like
right?
smallpox or something.
Yeah.
Full of posy. You're gonna drop dead.
Because you put your pockets full of posies so you don't smell stink. Like it's like
Yeah, so you can't smell your rotting flesh.
Ashes. We all fall down.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Anyways,
Cool.
Moving right along.
Cheers.
second question: what song do you have stuck in your head right now?
That one's easy, actually, because I just came up with a name for a beer that's a collaboration with Orono Brewing up in Orono, and we're calling it, so it's the song is Quinn the Eskimo, Bob Dylan's Quinn the Eskimo.
I don't
Also
know that
covered
one.
by Manfred Mann, which is a much more popular version.
Yes,
but
right.
we made a beer together that he grows quince fruit in his yard, and so he brought all this quince fruit down. We made an IPA with it, very like tropical IPA, lots of Galaxy and Mosaic. Came out pretty good. And then we fermented it with quince fruit as like a secondary fermentation. Put like 30 pounds of roasted quince fruit from his yard, and we decided to call the beer Quince the Eskimo. And so we just came up with it today. So I've had Quinn the Eskimo on my mind. So yeah.
So-
I'm a pretty big Dylan fan.
Good
so,
name.
Yeah.
I don't know what quince fruit is.
I didn't either until he showed up with it.
I didn't either till I had one in my yard. I was like, what the heck is that?
Yeah, they're it's an interesting fruit. It's quince paste. I'd actually heard of. Someone would like inform me of that one, and I was like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. But it's kind of, I could be way off here, but to me, it's like a hybrid between like an apple and a pear. Like it looks a little bit like a pear, but it's real
really?
wrinkly. But it has this really cool, like tropical flavor to it. It's like almost pineapple-y or something, and especially after you roast it, all that sweetness comes out. And so it's paired up with the hop varieties that we selected. It's kind of like a really neat play off each other. And
Speaking of roasted fruit, I've
Sure.
really wanted to do a caramelized peach with like some mango-y hops type beer.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense, first off?
Sure.
I feel like you would be the brewery to actually help make that happen.
Yeah.
You want to do a collaboration podcast and brewery?
Maybe. Wow. Is this happening? I think it is.
I think we should do it, right?
Yeah, all right.
I mean, I've seen all kinds of crazy collaborations, like a pizza place in a brewery, and chocolates in a brewery, and a distillery, but never have I heard of a podcast in a brewery collaboration.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Yeah. I mean,
Let's
that sounds
do
good
it.
to me.
Make
We
it
do
happen.
we do a beer called Eat a Peach, which is named after an album, but yeah,
Right,
also
yeah.
music tie in there, but
Do we have
that's
to
with
name it
roasted
after
peaches.
music?
No, well,
Because-
no, we don't. Yeah.
I'm not really good unless it's made by Disney, because I live with princesses,
Sure.
or Johnny Cash.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Those are my-
Johnny Cash wrote a lot of songs. You could probably find some good names.
yeah.
Right. Princesses with a really tough slant, you know,
Yeah.
Like, with a real,
Like,
a real
um,
grit to them when
yeah,
they're
like if
not
we
in
could-
princess mode.
So he sings one song about having stripes around his shoulders. We could do something about princesses with stripes around their shoulders.
Oh, I'm sure that's what he would have wanted.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I know Johnny Cash, that's what he would have wanted. Like,
Do you? Because like you would have to be like using a Ouija board at this point. But
yeah.
I would
no, we're
totally
not,
sit
We're
down.
not that close. Yeah.
No, okay. I was like, I will totally sit down at that Ouija board. If you can call him in, I would give it a shot,
Yeah.
because I actually put Johnny Cash lyrics in my wedding vows.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
You
It's
are
intense.
a devoted fan.
Yeah. And
And
then I went
wife.
and then I went to Disney World for my honeymoon. It all makes sense
Well, you know, yeah.
in the mind of me.
Princesses, Johnny Cash, yeah.
Yeah,
What's it? What's the one you float on boats and there's like a bunch of little people like singing?
it's a small world.
yeah. That's romantic.
Yeah, it is. We held hands, my husband and I. Yeah, and I sang to him, and he seriously rethought his idea of marrying me. He's like, "Oh crap,
I made a huge mistake.
what did I do?"
Yeah.
Anyways, last question.
Yeah.
So we have talked about the amazing biscuits that we actually smelled as soon as we walked into the house space of this place. But what we want to know is, what is the best thing you've had to eat this week?
Best thing I've had to eat this week. I've actually gone out to eat a few times this week. So I had I went to Empire in Portland. Have you been?
I haven't been since they switched
have.
it over.
Yeah. Pretty good. And they had like an egg roll there that had like prosciutto in it. And
Really?
I know I might be remembering a little bit wrong, but I kind of remember some like kind of crispy prosciutto in there and really good dipping sauce and like it's like dim sum ish. It's not it's not quite the dim sum I thought. They don't have the cart that comes around and you get
No,
to pick
there's no
stuff,
cart.
which is kind of
I
my
know.
favorite part of
I
dim
love
sum. But
that,
I was
yeah.
like, yeah, the food was good, so I let it slide. Which I feel like that was a tipping point whether they're going to stay open is my decision. but
Without you saying this is okay, things might have gone really
yeah,
badly. for
I
them.
could tell they were nervous when they didn't have the card. But no, everything was good actually. I remember the egg roll being like really like satisfying. So I don't know, they call it like their house egg roll or something, but the house egg roll at Empire. Yeah.
Wow. So the last time I was at Empire, you could get like a PBR with a shot.
and a slider.
Yeah, that's the
old
Empire.
days. Yeah,
The Empire I know. But
Yeah.
I'm guessing that you probably had slightly different beer with it. What did you pair with that? Because I actually lie and don't end the question there where I say this is the last one.
Oh, yeah.
I throw in a bonus.
I know. I should be able to remember too. What did it? Jeez, I know it's terrible. I actually don't really remember what the heck were we drinking there. Yeah, I don't know.
No
Terrible,
idea.
right? That I can't remember. Yeah. It's like, wow, it obviously made
You
a
don't
big
have, like, a
impact
beer
on me.
encyclopedia
No,
in
we had
your head.
cocktails. That's why I don't remember. Yeah, I had like a cocktail with. It was like a tiki type cocktail. Like it was made with like it was like rum and like some passion. That's why I don't
in a big
remember. I
bowl.
feel better now. I was like, I assume I had beer and I don't remember it. No, we did. We had cocktails. That's why.
I had
Yeah.
cocktails and I don't remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Well, that sounds delicious.
yeah. Oh, it was. It was very good.
Maybe we could put some quince fruit in the next cocktail,
That's not ridiculous.
right? It would be delicious.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Excellent. Well, we're going to wrap it up here.
Yeah. All right.
thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thank you. This is great.
Right.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Maybe set you guys up some biscuits after.
Oh, we're going to need some biscuits.
Yeah.
And we're going to need to talk about that collaboration.
Yeah, all right.
Excellent.
Offline.
Offline.
And then, yeah, later, save for a later date.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us. This has been a
Absolutely.
while in the making, actually.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like months
right.
we've been talking
so that
about
collaboration's not going to happen. That's a 2017er.
this. Right. It will.
Yeah.
Just, it's going to take a couple of years.
Long way
Yeah,
out.
I make a lot of commitments, and I upset a lot of people.
Yeah.
Disappointed.
It's all right. We can wait till 2017. We prefer to make it a 2016, but we won't stop bothering you until 2017 has come and gone, and then we'll just be like,
Yeah. All right.
we're done with them.
Yeah. Right. At least I'll give them 2 years. And then
I'll
that's
give them 2 years. That's the end.
Yeah. I have a strict rule. I only bug people for 2 years.
it. Yeah.
After that, I write you off.
Self-respect. I'm a person. Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, that's the end of that one.
There it is.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
We are going to do our very best, folks, to brew a beer with Chris. He has just over 2 years to make it happen. What do you think would be a good name for a peachy, mango-y beer? Let us know by heading over to Twitter and giving us a shout at Great Beer Women. Thank you so much to Chris for sitting down with us in the depths of the basement brewery, as well as up in their office space. To find links to their website and YouTube clips, head over to greatbeeradventure.com/025. Next week, we'll have our Christmas special for you, as well as info on how to enter our first product spotlight giveaway. And it is a good one. I've got one hint. It's pink, but not all that girly. The music throughout today's episode is by Old Etc. out of Biddeford, Maine. To learn more about them, head over to greatbeeradventure.com/music. We have new things headed your way every week and can't wait to share them with you. Special thanks to our behind-the-scenes guru, Dano Pugach. Today's episode was created, produced, and edited by me, Amanda. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Cheers. Want to know more? Be sure to find us on Instagram at Great Beer Women. If you haven't done so already, be sure to head over to greatbeeradventure.com/subscribe to subscribe. That way, you'll be the first to know when a new episode goes live. Also, don't forget to tell your friends about us. A small party is fun, but a huge party is extraordinary. Let's get more people knowing about beer in the great state of Maine. Great Beer Adventure is part of the Great Pint Society. Like winter rentals, like you're just there for like 4 or 5 months and you're gone. So you're just kind of like, all right.
That's what I did last winter in Old Orchard. It was
That's
pretty
what
awesome.
I did too. Like Brian and I, when we were planning on buying a house,
Yeah.
we saved money by doing winter rentals, and then his family has a camp, but it's very much a camp and very much not a full 4-season house.
Yeah.
So we'd go in the summer, but because it's also the family camp, we would not have it, so we'd actually be like homeless for a week. So we conveniently went on vacation the week that
Right.
like we would go camping.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just lined up.
Right, it's just
coincidence. Yeah.
Gives you
Exactly.
set vacation.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
we don't have any place to live this week. Let's go camping.
You guys vacation all the time.
Yeah.
Living the high life.
Right. We're just, yeah.
Technically almost.
Exactly.